Supervisor Townsley.
Good morning, Co-Chairs Bauer, Ginsburg, and to all members of the Commission. Allow me to welcome you to Miami-Dade County. I would be less than hospitable to have you leave without providing you with a souvenir of our 2012 general election ballot. It is my pleasure to speak to you today about the 2012 general election in Miami-Dade County, as I too share your goal of ensuring efficient administration of elections, including convenience and accessibility to all voters. For the record, my name is Penelope Townsley, Supervisor of Elections for Miami-Dade County. To summarize elections in Miami-Dade County, let me first say that unlike the other supervisors of elections in the state, I am not an elected official. My position is appointed, and my authority is derived through the mayor of Miami-Dade County. And as such, I don't set policy in the same way as my colleagues. Miami-Dade County has the largest and most complex elections operation in the state of Florida, with over 1.3 million registered voters. We have 829 precincts located in 541 polling places throughout the county. Polling places are chosen based primarily on geographic location, size, and ADA compliance. We use up to 10,000 poll workers in major elections and over 100 administrative, technical, and supply troubleshooters to provide timely response to election day issues. And training for these individuals began 3 months prior to an election. ADA accessible voting equipment is available at all polling sites, and poll workers are trained to assist our voters with disabilities. In the 2012 general election, over 888,000 Miami-Dade County voters cast ballots via early voting, absentee voting, and on election day. And this represents approximately 16,000 or 2% more votes cast in 2012 than in 2008. 52% more optical scanners and 88% more privacy booths were utilized for early voting in the 2012 general election than in 2008. And we served 90,000 or 28% fewer early voters in 2012 than in 2008. Over 1,700 election day optical scanners were deployed in the 2012 general election in comparison to 1,500 in 2008. More than 6,000 election day privacy booths were deployed in the 2012 general election in comparison to 5,800 in 2008. We served 40,000 or 11% more election day voters in 2012 than in 2008, and over 300,000 voters requested absentee ballots for the 2012 general election, and approximately 244,000 absentee ballots were cast. And this represents over 66,000 or 37% more absentee ballots cast in 2012 than in 2008. Many of the planning and operational activities surrounding the 2012 general election were unprecedented. We faced many challenges, which included serving the largest number of voters in the county's history, coding a 6-sheet, 12-page ballot, which you have, which exceeded the system capacity and was the county's largest ballot ever produced. We upgraded our absentee ballot mailing system to accommodate the ballot size. We produced a record number of absentee ballots totaling over 1.2 million ballot pages. Introduced pre-printed common ballot pages during early voting, which reduced the per voter printing time in half. And we implemented a supervised voting program to further protect the rights of our elderly mail ballot voters. Now, while these initiatives were necessary to even conduct this election, they were largely behind the scenes. The challenges that were most apparent to our voters were the long lines and, in some instances, the rather long wait times. Despite the department's best efforts to educate voters about the importance of preparing in advance and being familiar with the ballot contents, there were still voters who sustained long lines. Voter education was conducted through the local news, radio, newspaper, sample ballots, and numerous other outreach initiatives. As a result of these challenges, Miami-Dade County Mayor Carlos Jimenez established a 14-member elections advisory group to review the challenges encountered in the general election, identify opportunities for improvement, and make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners and the state legislature. During this period, my department issued an after-action report assessing the planning and operational aspects of conducting the general election. We found in our analysis that there was no single factor leading to the challenges we experienced in this election. We identified 6 primary factors that contributed to the long lines and wait times during early voting and on election day, and we made administrative and legislative recommendations to address them in the future. The primary contributing factors that were identified included ballot length, a number of early voting sites, reduction of early voting days, absentee ballot processing, polling place inefficiencies, and not re-precincting. And I'll speak to each individually. Ballot length. This is perhaps the most significant factor that impacted all 3 methods of voting. Miami-Dade County's 2012 general election ballot included 105 ballot styles that contained between 37 to 58 contests each. Not only did voters have 11 long and complex constitutional amendments, but also had 11 county questions in addition to 17 municipalities who piggybacked with their own varieties of questions. Voters were clearly overwhelmed with this text. A number of early voting sites. Since 2004, Miami-Dade County has operated 20 early voting sites. Of the 74 statutorily authorized libraries and city halls in the county, our post-election survey identified an additional 28 facilities that are suitable for conducting early voting. Without a doubt, more early voting sites would have helped reduce wait times by better distributing voters. But at the point that we realized that this was necessary, it was too late to add additional sites, and even if we could, we simply did not have the required equipment and staffing resources to do so. A reduction of early voting days. The fewer days than the last presidential election meant fewer options for our voters. Early voters couldn't spread their decision to vote early over 14 days, but rather had only 8 days. We also believe that the discouraging effects of long lines during early voting pushed voters who would have otherwise voted early to vote by mail and on election day, and this caused historically high numbers in those 2 voting methods. Absentee ballot processing. The greatest challenge we encountered with absentee ballot processing was the record number of absentee ballots that were requested, mailed, and returned. On the Monday prior and on election day, we received approximately 56,000 absentee ballots. totaling over 300,000 ballot pages, which had to be processed, verified, canvassed, opened, scanned to be included in our election results. The sheer volume of paper requiring proper handling and signature verification contributed to the final election results not being completed as quickly as media outlets would have liked on election night. Our challenges were further exacerbated by a 12-hour mechanical breakdown of our inbound absentee ballot processing equipment. And on election day, polling place inefficiencies have been largely attributed to our outdated voter check-in process. The paper-based process significantly impacted wait times at some precincts, as voters had to be manually located on hard copy precinct register pages and often waited inordinate periods of time for poll workers to make phone calls to the department to determine voter eligibility. And lastly, not re-precincting. While the decision to not re-precinct after legislative redistricting was made in the best interest of the voters and actually served them well in the primary election, when compounded with other factors, it had the opposite effect in the general election. In some cases, it resulted in an uneven distribution of voters, which proved problematic in a high turnout election coupled with a long ballot. But even with these challenges and a 12-hour mechanical breakdown in our absentee ballot processing equipment, it should be noted that by 10 p.m. on election night, 91% of our precincts had their last voter vote, and we met and exceeded the state's reporting deadline for both unofficial and official results. Now, in having identified these primary contributing factors, the obvious question is what can and will we do to ensure that we don't experience these challenges in future elections? And the answer is twofold. At the state level, among the most impactful remedies are the legislative changes that were recently approved. The county made 5 state legislative requests that specifically related to the challenges we faced. They were flexibility in the allowable sites used during early voting, extending the number of early voting days, which included the Sunday prior to Election Day, limiting the state constitutional amendments to the same 75-word restriction of other ballot language, and extending the number of days that supervisors are permitted to canvass absentee ballots before the election from 15 to 20 days. And since the time of these recommendations, the state has passed a comprehensive bill known as HB 7013, which addresses many of our concerns. And I feel that they will have a positive impact on elections moving forward. I'm very encouraged by the passage of this bill, which will expand the currently authorized early voting sites and allow up to 14 days of early voting, including the Sunday before election. And it also applies the 75-word limit to uncontested constitutional amendments. Miami-Dade County and the Elections Advisory Group are committed to taking advantage of the opportunities and flexibilities these new laws provide for major countywide elections. We believe these changes alone will help to significantly reduce lines in future elections. At the county level, the department is currently working on a comprehensive countywide re-precincting plan to eliminate split precincts and provide a more uniform distribution of voters. Miami-Dade County is committed to implementing technology enhancements that will significantly speed up processing times in all methods of voting. For Election Day, we will purchase electronic poll books that will be used countywide in all precincts to provide faster, more efficient voter processing, instantly update voter history, and eliminate the need for phone calls to determine voter eligibility. For absentee voting, we will replace and purchase advanced absentee ballot processing equipment that will exponentially enhance inbound processing productivity and eliminate delays in outbound processing due to resource dependence. And finally, in early voting. As I mentioned earlier, the most impactful change for early voting is opening additional early voting sites and based on the type of election. Not only does the one size fits all concept not work from county to county, but from election to election. And we have broken through the one size fits all mentality. We realize that in Miami-Dade County, presidential elections warrant more than standard 20 early voting sites. Additional early voting sites will reduce wait times, allow a better dispersion of voters, and enhance voter convenience. Because after all, at the end of the day, it's all about the voters. So, in closing, it is again a pleasure to be here today, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak before the Commission. I am hopeful that the legislative changes that were recently enacted will improve the voting experience here in Florida, and I'm personally committed to instituting those changes under my discretion to ensure that future elections in Miami-Dade County can be seen as a model nationwide. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.